Hello, everybody. My name is Drew Dosek, and welcome to Trading the Close. And so we're back in the markets again on Monday. Hopefully, everybody had a great weekend. You would think we would have a lot of volatility today with the big push up we saw on Friday, but really everything simmered out. We really didn't have much volume in today's market either. Most of the stocks were really just going sideways. There were a couple movers, which we'll cover today. But first, let's jump into the market summary board to take a look at what's happening. And honestly, today's week really revolves around NVIDIA with their earnings on Wednesday. So in the market summary board, we got the Dow Jones down 0.72%, NASDAQ basically flat, up 0.06%. S&P 500 down 0.29%. U.S. oil having a nice pop, though, up 1.63%. Gold basically flat, down 0.18%, and Bitcoin still seeing some selling pressure after a really good bounce that occurred a few days ago, and it just didn't hold that ground and has since given it back up, pointing towards my target that's getting ever closer to being hit. All right, so let's jump into the S&P 500 heat map, and we see here what we typically see during flat days. We've got a lot of mixed stocks in here. We do have a heavy concentrated in red over here in the health sector, utilities, manufacturing, but then you get over to the bigger stocks and you start seeing some bigger areas and shades of green over here, with Google up 1.4%, NVIDIA 1.33%, AVGO 0.3%, Netflix up 1.27%. We'll look at that chart later, but basically a mixed bag and a slightward downward movement on the S&P 500. So let's take a look at that. We've been looking at this chart for some time, especially the combination of these two parallels. Now, for this analysis, just pay attention to this larger parallel, because you see here on Friday's price action, it accelerated price above the top end of this parallel. Then we zoom into the 10-minute chart. We're going to see what happened here on Friday. We moved up. First, we tried to attempt to get higher, got rejected. Now notice this parallel goes all the way back to October of 2023. And even on the 10-minute chart, price is reacting to these levels, even though this chart and trend line is 2 years old. Now notice the precision of this too. So then when price finally gained momentum, it broke out above the parallel, came back, tested it, bounced off of that area again towards the end of the day Friday, bounced again to close above the parallel. Today, we gapped underneath this parallel, fought to get above, got rejected, then finally did get above. And then as you see here now with the last 10-minute candle, selling pressure now starting to come into the markets, because really we were in this tight range nearly all day until the very last moments of the day. So still pretty curious price action. So we're coming right back down into that parallel. So that tells me that this top end of the parallel is the resistance for the most near term going forward. And really, as I've said, NVIDIA, guys, is really where everybody's going to be paying attention to. All the investors this week will be watching what happens to NVIDIA's stock Wednesday after hours when they report earning. Is it just going to be a sideways mover, no reaction? Is it going to be a sell-off? If it's a sell-off, we are going to be going much further down on the S&P 500, not just this little blip of 2% that you've seen. If we do have some profit taking with NVIDIA, which could be the chance, and we'll get into that chart here in a little bit, that could certainly alter the way the momentum of the current markets are taking us. All right, so let's jump into the QQQ. QQQ, not much to report here from Friday. We really just kind of moved slightly downward. Upward resistance will be this trend line 579.22. Lower area range of support down here at 539.19. Next up, SMH, very similar to the Qs. We've just been consolidating really with the SMH for the last several weeks in this area, made several attempts to bounce up into this parallel channel that you see on the top of the screen, and at each time have been rejected. So this is going to be the next attempt. That would mean resistance would be right here on this parallel, right at 298.53. If we extend that out over a couple days, it's basically that $300 psychological level. If this gets rejected again, be watching for support down here at 271.62. Now keep in mind too, if this consolidation that's been going on for a while does break, this will be the first level of support, but it likely will go lower because it's winding up momentum. For whichever way it breaks, it will likely break pretty significantly in that direction. Next up, IWM. IWM Friday, what an explosive move on this chart. Now notice we're not at the all-time highs. which is why I'm zoomed out right now. But you can see here, this is a great break, securing the break above this declining trend line right here. That tells me the next area of support will actually be on this inclining trend line connected from pivot low in April to this pivot that occurred here August 1st. So should price come back down, this is the area that will save current trend. Since this trend line's only been tagged twice, the likelihood and probabilities dictate that IWM will continue moving up along this current trend for the foreseeable future. If price does come down to this trend line, 225 is that support level. Next resistance isn't far away at 236.63. Be watching to see if price gets there and then starts consolidating. If it consolidates before, much like what we're seeing here with these last 2 days of trading, we could start building that momentum prior to this resistance level, which would then mean we could blow through that area. So be watching price on IWM over the next couple days to see how this pattern does change and affect price prediction. All right, now into Bitcoin. So a lot of folks love to hone in on Bitcoin because it really controls the momentum for all the altcoins in the market. So over the last week, we did see here on Friday, notice this sell-off that occurred Friday. It concluded right here at the 50% area of this parallel channel. Now notice also that does correspond with the previous pivot highs back here May 22nd and May 23rd on the chart of Bitcoin. But nevertheless, price came right down to that 50% area. What an incredible bounce that occurred. But notice it didn't hold that bounce. None of that was held. And since now this area has already been tagged, so that allows room for it to be pierced and price to go down underneath it. I've been talking about this declining trend line for Bitcoin for some time, basically retracing the breakout that occurred to make a full completion of that will be down here at 107, 131. Be watching this declining trend line for another potential bounce that could take Bitcoin right back here to the 50% area of this parallel channel, roughly around $112,000 on the chart. Next up, we've got gold. Gold, as we see here, Friday did push up nicely, but notice where price stopped, all on this declining trend line. Now, this declining trend line hasn't been touched in the last several months since I've drawn it here on the charts. It's just stayed right here, and price has responded to it and came right back down. Today, we didn't see that much of movement in gold, but still, all in all, maintaining in this triangle. Now, one thing I want to explain, because I know sometimes with technical analysis, there's small nuances that can dictate whether probabilities shift a move higher or lower. And I want to be clear on this. So let's look at the monthly chart of gold. All right. So you scroll back out and notice where the price of gold is. It's right up here at the top of the charts. We've got weekly topping tails. We have daily topping tails. We don't quite have a monthly topping tail as insinuated here, but that's just the text I have from this weekly topping tail. But basically my point is we're consolidating at the very high end of the chart. Now we could go higher, no doubt about it. Gold still could go higher, but normally a bull consolidation at the very high of the chart insinuates we will fail with this bull flag move and start moving lower. That's just one of the nuances of technical analysis. Now, flipping over to silver with that same thought process, look on the monthly chart where we're at with silver. And you notice we're not anywhere near the high. So that same rule doesn't apply here on the chart of silver. And notice if I go back over to silver, how I said last week, we were consolidating in this fashion a little bit off the top, which would imply we should still have room to move higher. And thus that's what's happened on Friday. Now we're starting to curl back in a little bit today. Now silver is one of those at this current stage. I wouldn't be looking to buy or to short. It's right in between support and resistance. Support is at 36.58 and the resistance level for this move and this current trend is going to be on this inclining trend line right around $39.94. Be watching for one of those to get tagged, but basically it's starting to imply that we could start moving higher, potentially tagging that resistance trend line. Next up, U.S. oil. U.S. oil, look at this nice bounce on U.S. oil today, now putting us comfortably in the trading range of these pivots that occurred back in June as well as in July. So this area actually will be resistance for the current state of oil on this nice bounce up. Notice too, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candles moving up from this low pivot that occurred on August 28th. We'll see if we get consolidation and then a pullback tomorrow. If we do have any bullish buying momentum, the resistance is going to be on this declining trend line, roughly at 68.25. Now, all of this is still bearish consolidation. Even if price does manage to get up here to 68.25, that still will be in the bearish realm of consolidation. One positive note, though, is price has regained some of these areas of consolidation on oil. So it's starting to shift slowly the probabilities of a price action going up a little bit higher on oil. I need to see oil move up another day in order for those probabilities to then shift more so for tagging this declining trend line. Next up, nat gas. Nat gas didn't really have as nice a day as oil. It did have a green day, but notice it gapped down significantly to open the day and then now fought itself back up, still maintaining price under this declining trend line. Also, with this close on Friday, that tells me with the close underneath this consolidation, the probabilities now shift for us to move a little bit lower on nat gas. 255 is where I still think there is going to be substantial support for nat gas, especially if we have a 1 or 2 day sell off right into that level. That would be a good buying opportunity for a swing trade. Next up, we've got the 10-year yield. 10-year yield, not too much to report on this, except for Friday's big decline on the 10-year yield still kept us in this bearish consolidation on this chart with a potential major move down here to 4.095%. Still on the radar. That's what I'm anticipating. We'll see this bear flag play out a little bit more in the future. Next up, Roblox. Roblox had a nice pop up this morning, nice gap up, and look, it really maintained price up here too. The area in which it caught resistance initially was the gap fill here on the screen that you see at 125.28. That held down price for most of the day and even is now holding it down for the end of the day too. Next area of resistance for Roblox for any upward momentum is going to be on this inclining trend line, would serve as a great day trading level should we pop up in there tomorrow, roughly around $131. Next up, KDP. This is with Dr. Pepper. Now, Dr. Pepper did announce that they will be acquiring JDE Peet's. And since the stock investors have slammed the price down on KDP, notice this long-term inclining trend line that we have back here from basically the COVID lows connected over to a major pivot here in January. And you can see price flush down through it today. Pretty impressive sell-off. So that tells us we're likely going a little lower. But usually what happens when these trend lines get broken, they catch support and then bounce right back up to the trend line. Notice here, next support 30.68, but then the next one at 29.72 could generate a decent small swing trade profit of about 7% should we have that come through within the next couple of days. So be watching these levels for a short swing trade opportunity, very near term. Next up, we've got Dutch Brothers. Now, Dutch Brothers, I bring this up for a couple reasons. Yes, it did have a good move today, up 6.29%. But then also, I want to give you some insight as to how I interpret insider selling, because that's what's going on here on the chart of Dutch Brothers. All right. So if you go down here, click on the news, you can see that two 10% owners, basically a collective of owners with this both of these LLCs initiated insider selling over the last week. And now, one thing you need to do whenever you're noticing insider selling within a particular stock is how many shares they have remaining after they've done their sale. All right. So if you look here, we have a sale initiated of over 1 million shares. And after that sale concluded, this trust has over 2 million shares remaining. So that tells me they sold about 30% of their stake in the company. And this very next set of sales had with this individual aggregator, we have 661,000 shares sold. But then at the end, they have 1.2 million shares remaining. So again, they sold technically about 30% of their stake in both accounts. Now, 30%, that's a substantial amount. I really start raising red flags once that 50 or 60% is sold with these insiders. Being 30%, that's still raising my attention to follow the action on this stock, as a lot of insiders seeing this be an extended move and a good place to go ahead and hit that take profit button. So technically, let's look at what's going on in the chart. So we see here Dutch Brothers has a wedge pattern that's forming here on the chart. Very next level of resistance is going to be at 71.27. In order to break through this declining trend line, the next resistance will be 73.24. So we have a lot of resistance very close to current price action. I will be surprised if we break through this and continue moving without some pullback and retest of this broken trend line. To the downside, should selling start emerging now that insider sellers are starting to dump the stock, be watching on this inclining trend line that also has support just beneath it at $59.52. Inclining trend line, roughly about $61.81. Next up, we've got NVIDIA. As I said, NVIDIA does have earnings Wednesday after the bell, as you can see here. But what do we have going on NVIDIA? So over this last week, we finally came down and tagged this trend line for the third time. Notice from the April low, we had 1 hit, 2 hits, and now 3 hits. And really, this was kind of a hit where the car just barely stayed on the side of the road with like 2 wheels off the side of the road on a turn. And you can see it took 3 or 4 days of now tagging this trend line for price to finally get lifted back up above and carefully trading above this trend line. So that tells me in the next couple days, if we do start moving up prior to our earnings announcements on NVIDIA, the resistance will be on the top end of this parallel channel right at 186 and 50 cents. To the downside, we're already on resistance with this inclining trend line, basically at 178.35. Should we break that, next area support 161.39, followed by the 50% area of this parallel, which is roughly 147.10. Notice how if I scroll back at this one area, 147.10 is just above this consolidation, just above this peak too, and then also encompasses all of this consolidation before we had our February sell-off into April. All right, so that's the game plan for NVIDIA for the near term. I'm not looking for much upside because to be honest, look at this. We're already at all-time highs. There's really not too many levels for me to provide beyond where we're currently at. Of course, I can always find something. So when that time comes, if it does come next week, or after earnings report, I will display all of those for you. But right now, we're coming right to ahead with a lot of resistance to the upside and support that's really been poked through several times, making it weaker, implying we're likely going to be turning down after earnings. But again, guys, earnings are a coin flip. I wouldn't be placing any sort of trades before earnings. I'd wait and react to it, see if these support levels are hit or if these resistance levels are tagged, and then make the trade off of those levels. Next up, we've got Netflix. Netflix, as you see here, did also have a decent day today, but I bring this to your attention too to show you the power of this parallel. We attempted to get up above and never established ourselves for more than just a couple days above this parallel, have since now come right back in, and now we're making an attempt to break up to the top end of this parallel. Depending upon what happens with NVIDIA, because if NVIDIA sells, the rest of the market will likely sell. Notice this trend line that I've drawn on the chart from this May pivot low over to this pivot in August, this pivot low. That could be the neckline of a potential head and shoulders pattern developing on the chart. If this does play out with price breaking this neckline, currently around 1160 on the chart of Netflix, that would pull Netflix all the way down here to 951.65, which does make sense. That likely is going to correspond with this inclining 50% area of the parallel. There will be stops along the way, stops and bounces. First area of support will be roughly right around $1,133 on this other inclining trend line. Next up, we've got Tesla. Now notice this technical analysis is pretty interesting. We've had a wedge pattern on Tesla basically since April, with price action bouncing about between the top and bottom ends of this wedge. Since then, we've had in August, we've had a poke above, then price trailed it. And then at the conclusion of this wedge, notice how like price just, it's almost like price knew that this line was right here and concluded, because you see it just roll right off the side, and they did catch support right here where these areas of the pivots are. And then it's since bounced up, now slamming into the next area of resistance right here at 346 on the charts. Should we have Tesla break through this declining trend line, the next resistance is at 383.76. To the downside, this new trend line will catch price roughly around $305. Notice the $300 level is right here. That is a big psychological level for Tesla. Should we have price accelerate straight down into it, you better expect and likely will expect to see pause, consolidation, or a potential small bounce around that area. So These are the bookends I'm paying attention to for price action on Tesla. Next up, Ethereum. Now, Ethereum did make brand new all-time highs yesterday. You can see here with this one candle, very thin doji candle that occurred right here at the top of the charts, making a high of $4,955.90. Nice move there on Ethereum. Really quite surprising too. With this pullback that we had, I thought that we were going to at least pull back under 4,000, but there was still so much momentum in Ethereum. It really showed how investors were eager to get in, whether it was $4,000 plus. And you know what? I don't blame them. This breakout is incredible. If you go back on the charts and look at this major breakout that's occurred, that's from a pivot high back here in 2021 and strung out this trend line all the way back down. We attempted to break and just didn't hold it, but now we have more than held this breakout, and now price is starting to come back in. With this sort of breakout, there's actually a measured move potential for Ethereum to go all the way, hold your breath, guys, all the way up here to 72.89, guys, with this sort of pattern. So there's a lot of money to be had and a lot of money to be made on Ethereum should Ethereum reach this targeted measured move. Now, with measured moves, especially one this far, there will be pullbacks. There are resistance levels, as I've already notated, 5,100, 6,139 displayed right there on the charts. But any pullbacks, as long as this pattern remains, we'll be buying opportunities for Ethereum to eventually tag that $7,200 level. Now, this $7,200 target will be negated if price comes down beneath this declining trend line at $3,500. All right. So those are the two levels you really need to keep in mind if you're an Ethereum bull. 3,500. You want to make sure price does not go underneath 3,500, because if it doesn't, there is a high chance that it will eventually get up to that $7,200 figure. So where to buy when price is coming down? Right here's the first level, most aggressive, 42.84 and 28 cents, followed by 38.69 and 91 cents. Now, the last ditch effort to do so, it would be down here at the $3,500 area. Now, we could, for all I know, have a big sell-off straight into that level and then it bounce up. And if so, then buying there would have been the best choice. But usually whenever we have a big move to occur, there could be a chance that we do catch support at some of the consolidation before. So as a strategic investor, you should space out your ads at the support levels so that you at least have a portion of Ethereum if that bounce happens earlier than you're anticipating, much like what happened to me when I thought price here was going to come under 4,000 and it took off without me. So I didn't get into Ethereum again. I was waiting for price action under 4K to do so. And since it has left me, so there's a couple different strategies to do. But if you have a longer term outlook on Ethereum, you can start buying at any one of these levels for that eventual potential chance of price reaching over $7,200. Now, next up, XRP, and lastly, XRP. You can see XRP has really been trading in a downward fashion after making this beautiful pivot high and topping tail on the chart. Typically supposed to happen with topping tail. We have some sort of pullbacks that have occurred. We since have had one and a bounce, but we still can't maintain price on a Ripple up here this high on XRP. So we've since started coming back down, as you see here on the chart. Notice where it's gotten support, right on this inclining trend line that's connected from March 19th pivot high over here to the May 12th pivot high and strung out. As you can see here, each time prices come right back down, has gotten a great bounce up. So that right now is the area to beat on the way down. Should that occur, we do have the next support at $2.56, followed by $2.32. So those are the two areas under this trend line I'll be watching out for to start accumulating more and more XRP. All right, guys, that wraps up today's Trading the Close. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. Again, we got NVIDIA on Wednesday, so be paying attention to that. Aside from that, I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you tomorrow on the charts, guys. Take care.